Hello viewers, this is Nobel Shah. Once again welcome you all to my networking tutorials. Today I am going to discuss about additional domain controllers in a domain. In our previous videos I have already explained how to create a domain controller in a new forest. Today I am going to discuss about additional domain controllers. What is additional domain controllers? Well, additional domain controllers is actually a copy of our main domain controller, and that actually used to support the number of users at that location in case of any fault tolerance. Well, it can happen that your primary domain controller it can be down in any time for any reason. So if you have a secondary domain controller that supports all of your users, then it will not be a big problem. So to support the users at all the time, you always need an additional domain controller, and to install the additional domain controller we must need a member who is a admin security group for that domain. In other way you can say that that must be a domain admin, so that he can create an additional domain controller. Well, you can make an additional domain controllers in two ways. If you are using graphical user interface, you can do it by server manager, or if you are using server core version, you can easily do it using Windows PowerShell. Well, in this lesson I am going to show you how to configure additional domain controllers using server manager. Well, for the demonstration I am using a virtual machine. As you already know that you need some pre-configurations to make a completed domain controller, like you need to set the IP address, you need to set the DNS address, all those things. So let me configure the IP address. Well, I am going to configure this machine as additional domain controller. So in the DNS section I am configuring the address of my main domain controller IP address, which is 172.16.16. okay, so this is my primary DNS server address, which is also my main domain controller, and click OK. Click close. Okay, my first thing is done, which is IP configuration. Go to the local server option and check whether you have a decent name for your computer. Well, I have already changed my computer name to additional. If you are not yet, you can do so by clicking the computer name option and go to change option and specify the name and restart your machine. The name will be changed. Okay, if you are first time using this machine, after installation of Windows Server 2012, you will see the computer name will start with a W something, and it will be around 15 character like that. But when you change the computer name and give a decent name, it will be easier to identify the machine. So I recommend to change your computer name if you have not already. Well, after that you need to install a role which we can found from add roles and features option under manage menu, next, and next once again, and select the Active Directory Domain Services role. Click Add Features button. This role is required to make a machine domain controller or additional domain controller or child domain controller or tree domain controller. Whatever you do, the primary requirement is this role, which is Active Directory Domain Services. Click Next button, click Next once again, and click Install. Well, it will take time to install the ADS role, Active Directory Domain Services role. It will take some time. So let me pause the video. Once it is finished, I will come back to you. Okay, we are back. So our role, Active Directory Domain Services, already installed. And after installing the role, you will see this option, which is promote this server to a domain controller. But before promoting this server to a domain controller, let me show you something. Okay, so this is the domain controller we are actually going to make additional domain controller from. So the domain name is adatum.com and the IP address is 172.16.16.16, and the DNS is also 172.16.16.16. So the machine we are going to make a domain additional domain controller, we have configured the DNS to this IP address, and let me see the users currently available with this domain controller. If you go to the tools, Active Directory users and computers, you will see some users over there. Okay, so these are the users currently available in this domain controller. We can see that there is a username user1. Also we have some organizational unit like CTZ, Dhaka, Agrabad, like this. So when we will make additional domain controller, all the things like OU and users will be replicated to the new additional domain controller. Means that will be actually a copy of our main domain controller. So now let us configure the additional domain controller. Okay, so click the promote this server to a domain controller option. Well, as I am using a virtual machine, it is kind of slow, so I beg your pardon for that. Oh, come on, taking long time. Okay, so in this window, which is deployment configuration, you can see the first thing you need to select the deployment operation. What will be the choice for the additional domain controller? You need to choose the first option, which is add a domain controller to an existing domain, because we already have a domain, means we are in existing domain. So we will add a domain controller to an existing domain. And the other two option, if you have already watched my previous videos, you know that the second option is for tree domain controller and child domain controller, and the third option is for the new forest. So let me choose the first option, which is add a domain controller to an existing domain, and specify the domain information for this operation. So we need to specify our forest name here, or the domain controller that will be copied. So before that, let me supply the credentials to perform this operation. As we said, we need a domain admin to perform this action. So let me change this option. Click the change button, and here specify the username, which is the domain name first, erratum, and then the backslash, the username, which is administrator. So administrator, this user, domain admins, he is a domain admin member, so he can easily create additional domain controller and then supply the password for the domain admin. Remember, this is not your current machine administrator password. This is domain domain administrator password. So supply the domain administrator password and click OK. Right, as you can see, after supplying the domain admin credentials, the domain name is showing here erratum. Just click the next button. Okay, from this window, domain controller options, you can choose whether this server will have the global catalog, or this server will have the DNS server or not, or whether it will be RODC or not. Well, we are not configuring this machine as read-only domain controller. We are making this additional domain controller, so we do not need to choose the RODC option, or if you do not want to make this server a DNS server, you do not need to choose the first option as well. Well, if you want to keep the global catalog option, if you want to keep this option, you can leave this tick and you can go to the next option. Or if you want to if you do not want to make this server to have the global catalog option, you can uncheck this. Let me keep this option, global catalog, and supply the directory service restore mode password. This is the password you will need if any time your directory services have any problem and you need to restore the directory service. Okay, let me supply the password. You can supply anything, just remember it. Well, it must be a complex password, and you can write it down to a secure place if you want. Well, now it is asking that the replication, specify additional replication options, like from which domain controller it will be replicated. Well, you can it is saying that could not retrieve domain controllers, the specific domain either does not exist or could not be contacted. Okay, let me try once again. Right, click the next button and then click the next button once again. Well, this is the review of your selections, whatever you have selected. Click the next option once again. Now it is checking the prerequisites, whether this machine is able to configure as a domain controller. Once it is checked successfully, we can move forward. Well, while it is saying that all prerequisites checks passed successfully, means now we are able to install it. So just click the install button to begin the installation. Well, it will take some time, so please have patience. Once it is finished, it will ask you to restart the computer. Well, it will actually automatically restart the computer, and once it will come back, you will see that this machine configured as an additional domain controller. All the things are replicating from the primary domain controller to this new additional domain controller, so it will take some time. Okay, so it is saying you are about to sign up, means the operation completed, and now the machine will restarting. Well, let me pause the video, otherwise you can be bored. Once it come back, I will get back to you, so please stay tuned. Okay, we are back. Now as you can see, the domain name is showing over here, which is Adatum. Just supply the password for the domain controller and get into it. So this is the way we can make a machine as secondary or additional domain controller. Right, once it is showing the server manager option, we'll check whether the users or OU has been successfully replicated or not from the primary domain controller. Still working, so just wait for a while. Okay, once it is stable, just go to the tools menu and go to Active Directory users and computers option. Well, we can see the domain name is showing here, which is adatum.com. Just expand the domain and you can see the CTZ and Dhaka OU is present, and if you go to the users option, you can see the user, which is user 1, and all the other users has been successfully replicated from our main domain controller to this domain controller. So if anytime our primary domain controller get failed, now we do not have any problem because we have an extra domain controller that will support our users. That is all actually, guys. Thanks very much for watching this video, and if you do like, please share with your friends and relatives. Thank you. Bye.